cost of your pension. That's something like 5%. 95% is debt service interest on borrowed money and bond money and so forth. So if they paid no money at all to any pensioner, the state would still have that enormous debt to pay. The state can't get out of its revenue balance by cutting your pension. Plus, we've had a Supreme Court ruling, they can't, Illinois Supreme Court, they can't cut your pension. So even if it does move back to the university, we can rest easy. I think the concern and the reason they're doing that is actually school districts who were not as sensibly or big or well-funded as we are, and that also wants to make the cost of pension go back to the school districts, which would be a real problem for many districts. There's a question, and there were several on this, about Social Security. My husband was eligible for Social Security. How does his affect mine? And another one, how does Social Security windfall provision affect my expected Social Security benefit? Who wants to handle windfall? And Social Security. Does anyone have a good answer on that? Arlene does.
Well, I don't have a complete answer. I would say go to visit a representative because every situation is different. But I will give you one caution that occurred to me. The windfall provision was established by our
I think your mic is off.
Not on?
Okay, except we can't figure out where the on button.
Pull it out.
There it goes.
Is that better? No? Okay. I'll try to talk very loud like I used to in
Or move to the other mic.
that one.
And then you'll be on camera too. This is Arlene Norsom, she's the secretary.
Let me repeat that. Every situation is different. Please go and visit the Social Security office and do it now. Do it way ahead of time. I lived for a long time thinking I was going to get a very nice chunk of money from Social Security because, like many of us, since I was 16, I started working. Well, I had not accumulated sufficient quarters to be able to get the full amount. And I learned from that visit that once I retired, I would be guilty of double dipping, since I would be getting a state pension and Social Security would be considered a national pension. In effect, it would reduce my amount of Social Security substantially from what I had anticipated receiving. This was the advice I was given. Draw your Social Security while you're still working.
Right.
Which was a very strange concept to me. I'm getting paid as the administrative salary, was not a small salary. I didn't really need my Social Security. I'd also learned that as long as you accumulate, you're going to get more and more money. Not true in my case. So please do talk to the Social Security office. I drew $500 more a month while I was employed. When I retired, that went away because of the laws that are in place. So every situation is going to be different. Some people who learned about that were able to accumulate enough quarters in the private sector in order that it did not affect their Social Security payment. So please don't get caught like I did in anticipating something that ends up not being the amount that you thought it was. Have I confused everybody? Or
Yeah, Chris, yes.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I would just say, if you go on the Social Security website, there are calculators and tables that help you sort this out. One issue is whether or not you have the 40 quarters to qualify for the coverage at all. And then the second issue is whether they have certain phrasing for it, something like substantial contributions over a certain number of years. And each year that you have those, it goes up until it levels off at, I forget, 25 or 30 years. So that's part of what you're hearing about are those amounts and getting those secured. So if you check the website and the policies, then and figure it out again for yourself, you'll get a sense of how your particular situation plays out. But by all means, I wish I had known what you just said. By all means, check that out ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely check. I mean, I checked it out. I started taking Social Security at age 65 and didn't retire until later. So I was getting the full amount. Mine didn't drop as much as I feared it would because I had worked enough years outside UIC. Another thing, no one said this, but if you came to work very young at UIC, your age with 30 years could be 50, 55. We see, and I don't know what advice you people give, a lot of people leave then, take their retirement and their free health insurance and go work in the private sector and pick up full Social Security. They're working for the second pension, which you can then keep. Is that correct information?
Oh,
absolutely. So there are sort of faculty people who kind of stay forever. But if you look at I mean, 2/3 of the people in the room, I think, by check-in are faculty, no, 1/3 faculty, 1/3 civil service, and 1/3 academic professional that signed up for this. So these things will be different in different sectors. But it's quite hard for a faculty member to get another position. But it's easy for the other groups of people. And that's what you see people doing.
Just to piggyback on those who leave employment relatively early and move on to the private sector, there's it's not quite free, but it's almost free health insurance. For anyone who has 20 years of service, there basically is an $11 premium for your dental coverage. You can opt in or out of dental. The premiums for dependents are reasonable, the same rates you pay as an employee. However, if you have a job after retirement that provides employer-provided coverage, or you have a spouse or a partner and you can obtain coverage there, the state has an incentive in place that will pay you, if you have 20 years or more of service, $500 per month. You're not opting out forever. You're not opting out of the health insurance forever. You're opting out for a planned year or until you have a qualifying event. You lose the job, the spouse loses the job, you lose the coverage. You're able to come back into the plan. So $500 per month is available for members with retirees with greater than 20 years of service, 20 or more. Less than 20 years of service, it's $150 per month, payable until you're Medicare eligible, or until you need the coverage, or until a qualifying event occurs.
I'm so glad you're here. That was very helpful.
So that's $500 a month that you didn't know about before.
How do you find out about it?
How do you find out about that? At the time of retirement, when you file the application, as Bauman mentioned, there's an election that you complete for health insurance. You'll either say, I want to participate in the health insurance program, or I don't. And there's another set of paragraphs below, because we're a bureaucracy. If you don't, you can say, I don't, and I don't want any coverage, and I don't want the incentive, or you can slip down to the next paragraph that says, I'm not eligible for Medicare coverage, and I don't want the health insurance coverage. I do want the opt-out incentive. If you have less than 20 years of service, it's $150 per month. If you have greater than 20 years of service, it's $500 per month. So you'll elect that at the time of retirement on the participation election form. The next step will be that the state will send you or CMS, Central Management Services, will send you additional information. But that's the first step in the process. Yes?
If you don't have an outside private sector job when you retire, so you go with the CSRS health insurance, but then you get an
Can we give the
outside-
mic to the...
Oh.
So if you obtain a job or health insurance options after retirement,
Yes.
and you are participating in the health insurance program, you can enroll in the opt-out any benefits choice period.
Oh, so
So-
once a year in
Right,
May.
in the month of May, it's effective July 1. So for those who, if you don't have coverage and your prospects are that you plan on not working, take the health insurance coverage, and you always have the option to opt out, as long as you don't, you're not Medicare eligible.
I think you'll see why the State University Annuitants Association watches the healthcare benefits. It's a very generous benefit. That kind of money, depending on years of service, is being spent by the state on our behalf for the plans that we have. Now, when you reach, everyone, you and your dependents reach 65, you'll go on, if you're retired, you'll go on to Medicare, and you will have to pay Part B, which is means assessed. For most people, it'll be 100 and, what is it now?
34. 134.
134 per month. But the rest of your care, apart from the $11 dental, is on whatever plan has been negotiated. So it's an amazing benefit. There are several questions that is it on that?
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. Mr. Bridges said if you opt out and you're on your wife's insurance for a while, you can come back to the university after she retires or doesn't have insurance anymore?
Correct. So the key with that example is that if your spouse has state of Illinois health insurance coverage, so let's say that you both work at the university, you retire, you want the incentive, that doesn't work. So as long as you're covered under CMS or Central Management Services provisions, there's no incentive. If your spouse is working outside of our system and provides dependent coverage, absolutely, the incentive is available.
Does anybody want to come to the mic and ask a question in person? I have questions here I can read, but sometimes the flavor hearing it from you is a little bit more meaningful. Let me read this one, because it's probably one that someone wouldn't. This is one of those ones I'd say is a confidential kind of question. What are your thoughts and perspectives about how open or cautious to be about sharing with others at the university about considering retirement? And we had another one. Who do you first tell that you're thinking of doing this? I'd say your partner, but hey. Just me. And then you get into the technical things of how to do it. But that's a tricky question. And, who do you tell first? It's something confidential. That's why I like that benefit estimator, because you can get a lot of information anonymously. That's why I like meeting with the SUAA counselor, meeting with the Social Security office. They're all very helpful. Private financial advisor, if you think that's appropriate. I'd say, really, I would say friends and family, because it often is that the trigger is financial, okay, but it's often caring for a new grandchild. Your spouse has medical problems. Your parents have medical problems. There are other things that come in to your need for flexibility of time. Who do you tell at the university? Well, if you want to negotiate a rehire contract, you are going to need to talk to your boss, and you can still do that. There's state requirements. You can be rehired for the difference between your maximum years earning and your pension. And that stays fixed, even though the pension creeps up at 3% a year. That rehire amount stays the same, right?
There are a couple different calculations.
Yeah, there are multiple calculations for the earnings limitations, but we provide that information to you at the time we finalize the retirement plan.
And
You'll have it.
I'm rehired, and you have to recertify every year, so you're on an annual contract. But how it used to be and how it is in school districts, which is why they're trying to make the person paying the pension be responsible for paying it, not the state. People will negotiate, well, I won't retire You know, if you have a union contract for tenure, I won't retire unless you give me a pay raise for the next 4 years to eke out my maximum pension. Some things, there is an amount you can do, but some people do that negotiation. So you may know someone in your unit who's done it, and you know how cooperative your bosses are, but sometimes unit directors, see, this is why I can say it, they can't say this. A unit director might encourage you to do that because otherwise you won't retire. And if you retire, they can eliminate the position or hire.
7%.
It's a 7% rule, you can't inflate it 25% or so on. But there are rules for that. So you might want to do that. If you want to come back working part-time in some capacity to eke out that difference, you might want to talk to your advisor. Is someone has a question?
Yes, I'm with the College of Engineering, and I'm an HR manager for the college. And recently we had an employee who announced her retirement 2 weeks before her retirement at the end of last year. And that was havoc for both her and the unit because everybody was shutting down for the entire year 2 weeks before her retirement. So there wasn't a lot of time for us to counsel her. And it was really difficult for her in the end because she missed out on a lot of options that she could have had if she had just come to her HR manager. So I think it's very important to go to your HR manager as soon as you possibly can. Your HR manager should always keep your information extremely confidential. If they don't, shame on them. They are really there to serve you, not serve the gossip strings that's going on here in the university. But it's really, really important to let the HR manager know at least 60 to 90 days in advance. It really helps the employee. I really felt sorry for this lady. I couldn't help her in the last 2 weeks of her work at the university. It was really devastating for her. She missed out on a lot. So go to your HR manager as soon as you can. You should trust them.
Thank you. And your HR manager should be confidential, they're supposed to be, but I do know of some that tell their boss.
They should be.
I know. There's a quick question, it's for you. Will a rep from Social Security be at the retirement session on 410 and 411?
No.
The answer is no. Does anybody else have a question from the floor? Not everybody is on these traditional plans, and I have a question here for those in the self-managed plan. How does the process differ?
So self-managed plan members really have 3 options at retirement. One is that they can elect to receive a monthly payment for life, so annuitize their benefit. 2 is that they can elect a lump sum, and as long as you've met the standard vesting requirement, which is 5 years of service credit, you're entitled to the employer contributions in addition to your employee contributions. 3rd option is that you can elect to defer. All of these plans, portable, traditional, self-managed. In most cases, we need income, we need health insurance, so we start monthly payments right away. But for those who might not need the income or want to assess all the options, you can always defer receipt of monthly payments or a lump sum election until the April 1st after age 70 and a half, which is an IRS regulation. So self-managed plan members can elect to begin receiving monthly income, take a lump sum, or defer the decision until sometime down the road. Yes?
If they want to get health insurance, which option do they have to take?
All right, if you want health insurance, you have to receive this monthly. So the deferral and the elections to take lump sums mean you're walking away from health insurance. All of the benefits, the ancillary benefits of the retirement system are gone. You're just getting you and the money.
And that's something self-managed people have pointed out to us. They didn't know that they had to do it that way. The reason it's that way, as I understand it, if you have your health is connected to the monthly payment. So if you're in a self-managed plan, you take it all out, they've got no way to do that.
Correct. And I did want to assess, or kind of answer one of the questions I saw in the material I received. Keep in mind that while everyone wants to achieve 30 years of service, 30 years of service credit means you can retire at any age without penalty or reduction. Doesn't mean that you're at the maximum benefit that we can pay, which is 80%. Just means that you can get out at any age, no penalties, no reductions. The pension will always increase each year until you reach the 80%, and that's when you reach the point where your colleagues may say you're working for nothing. My approach is a little different in that basically in this retirement system for university employees, once you reach maybe 72 to 73%, which is still a significant length of service, you pretty much will take home what you take home while working. So you can go for 80%, it's great to get that, achieve it, it's the goal, it's the most you can receive, but you know, maybe you can start looking a little earlier and assess your options as you go. So.
That's advice that he's been giving for years, because I know we retired basically after meeting with you, Lee, my wife and I, 15 years ago. Wow. And we haven't regretted a moment of our retirement.
And they work full-time other places too.
Well, the strangest thing I came across a few months ago is that I had a gentleman in who I had retired his father. So, at least you've been somewhere for a little while. This month is my 27th year with service. So.
It's time for you to retire.
Maybe that's what that means.
No, that's right, with the benefit estimator, I came up with the same thing. Now, there's something else you can do. Oh, you have a question there, great, life question.
I just wanted to go back to the Social Security question. I understand the part about what Arlene was talking about, but one thing I've thought about is, like, my husband works in the private sector, and he's worked obviously since age 16. He has a lot of Social Security coming. So my question is, when I understand when we're both alive, I can collect a pension, he can collect Social Security. If he predeceases me, am I eligible to get some portion of his Social Security? And if I predecease him, is he eligible still to get Social Security and my pension as a survivor?
Okay. He has the advantage. So if he predeceases you, Social Security has a provision called the Governmental Pension Offset. They essentially will reduce what would have flowed from his benefit to you, which is 50% of his pension Social Security payment. They will reduce that amount by 2/3 of what CSRS is paying. So if his Social Security payment is $2,500, your payment as a spouse is $1,250. We're assuming your normal ages for retirement and Social Security.
Right.
If we are paying you $3,000 a month, Social Security will deduct 2/3 of the $3,000 from the $1,250. Poof, your payment goes away. Now, if you predecease him, and you're in the traditional plan or the portable plan, we'll pay him half of your pension. That does not affect his Social Security benefit. So, yeah, you kind of slightly unequally yoked as far as the death
Can you get the
benefits.
full pension if he gives up Social Security, or is that even an option?
That's not an option.
Okay.
Although, if, let's say that you reach retirement, both of you are alive, and at retirement, and this is not something we usually go through during appointments, but most times I do. There's a joint and survivor benefit, well, CSRS pensions and portable and traditional are joint and survivor benefits, which means in the event you pass away, someone else receives monthly income. Now, the portable plan, you've got options, you can provide different levels of benefits. Traditional plan, it's basically 50% that flows to the spouse. Now, if your spouse says, can I get more? If you reduce your monthly payment, you can pass on more to him. And we call that a reversionary annuity.
So I have two questions on purchase plans and purchasing back time. I know I did the calculation, I worked at another state university and calculated it was worth purchasing 5 years from another state university, that it would pay me off in 4 years of retirement or something like that. The questions are, when is the purchase plan scheduled to recalculate? I'm sure that's a Lee Bridges question. And is there a timeline regarding purchasing back time?
So the first question probably deals more, I think, with the money purchase formula.
Yeah, maybe.
So what I can say about the money purchase formula and factor changes is that our board did meet last week, and they set a date. And I would say it's probably sometime mid-next year that you should expect a implementation of changes regarding the money purchase formula. Can't tell you anything specific.
Do you want to explain what that is for those who
Right,
don't yet know?
So within this retirement system, under the traditional and portable plans, if you elect a monthly payment, CSRS has a number of formulas that we use to calculate your pension. There's a standard, what's called a defined benefit formula, which is the general formula, or 2.2. Every year of service, you receive 2.2% of your salary. So if I have 20 years, I get 44% of my earnings average. General formula is very straightforward. If I'm less than age 60, there are penalties and reductions. So the general formula, you want to be age 60 to be eligible for a normal retirement benefit. The money purchase formula bases the pension on assets, so your account balance, and age. So it's life expectancy or actuarially based. Just like you taking your account balance to an insurance company and saying, here's what I have. They have their actuarial or annuity tables. They figure out what they can pay you for your lifetime. We do all of that internally. So every 3 years by law, we must review and revise those life expectancy factors. And regardless of what you hear about young people dying sooner, we're always living longer. At least our actuaries tell us that we are. So every time we've implemented new actuarial factors, the pension has declined. Basically because we have a set amount of money, but now you're living longer, so we have to divide that over a longer term. So expect that sometime next year, for those who have calculated their benefit and it's highest under the money purchase formula, there will be a reduction in pension benefits sometime mid-next year. And if you want to avoid that reduction, you must retire before that's implemented.
And they will give notice so that you can do that.
You should see notice probably within the next couple of weeks. And
Well, like-
basically, if you retire before the effective date, which is never the first of the month, because we all retire on the first of the month, it's always the second or the fourth, you avoid any reductions for your lifetime. So those are the things to keep in mind in regards to that.
And in the past, when that's happened, there's been a bolus of retirement.
Oh yes, it will be.
But there will be, because if you're considering it and you're thinking this year, next year, 2 years, and that difference is large enough, you will retire sooner, many of you.
Right, and for those who have reached the maximum benefit, so you think, well, I'm working and I haven't figured out what I want to do next, the impact on you is not that the pension necessarily will be reduced, but there's an accumulation within your account that we, basically it's a function of the interest that we credit and the normal contribution you make. So let's say that I have $300,000 within my SURS account, and that's just what SURS needs to pay me the maximum benefit. But I choose to stay another year. SURS credits 6% interest on that balance, which we'll just say is $18,000, $17,000, and I continue to make contributions. So let's say there's $20,000 more in my account 1 year later. But actuarially, I'm a year older, so SURS needs less. And so everything over and above the balance SURS needs is returned to me as a lump sum. Now, the impact of this money purchase change is that SURS needs more of my pool. So if I had $20,000 that SURS was to return to me, the actuarial change happens, my $20,000 might disappear. So for those who are at the maximum benefit, it affects you in that it doesn't affect the monthly payment, but it does affect the excess, return of excess contributions. And for the rest of us who aren't at the maximum benefit and are highest under the money purchase formula, there'll be a reduction. The last cycle, the reduction was between 6 and 8%, and we probably will expect something similar to that this cycle.
So what's on,
So the basics of it is we will receive notice, everyone will receive notice within the coming weeks. The implementation date will be sometime next year.
So definitely not this year.
Definitely not this year.
at the end of next year, or like,
2019.
do you know the month?
Well,
Summer?
I believe sometime, well, it's not at the end and it's not at the beginning. The second question was about service credit purchases. Now, the thing about service credit purchases you have to keep in mind is that you can't just say, well, I've got this money in my 403B or my 457 plan and I want to give it to CERS to buy service credit. Can I just buy service credit? You cannot. You have to have some type of creditable service that meets CERS standards, like, as you mentioned, other public employment at another public university, service here, when you didn't work or didn't contribute to the plan. And that's basically it. So when I say here, any CERS-covered employer where you worked at least half-time did not contribute to service. That is what we call prior service. That's creditable time that can be purchased in our system. Outside of our system, it has to be full-time employment at a public university that you don't qualify for a pension from. So it could be school districts, local, it could be university, community colleges, any of those qualify. But it has to be full-time, public, and no benefit from that time. Now, if it's a year, or it's 5 years, or it's 10 years that you can purchase, the basic assessment is, what am I giving to CERS and what am I getting as a return? And as you mentioned, if I'm giving CERS $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but it's being paid back to me within 5 years, that's our kind of our litmus test. If it's 5 years, you can't go anywhere else. You couldn't give Vanguard or Fidelity or TIACREF money and have them pay that back to you every 5 years with a guarantee for spousal benefits and automatic annual increases for the rest of your life. So whether it's beneficial to purchase service credit, we sit down, we calculate, and we give you an idea of what that return on investment is. You can use tax-sheltered funds, 403B, tax-sheltered annuity, deferred compensation, IRAs, 401ks. If you're single, there's a portion of your account, if you're in the traditional plan, that'll be returned to you. You could use that. So there's always, well, there are many different funding mechanisms to purchase service credit. Right? I always suggest go through the process. There's no obligation to evaluate whether it's beneficial or not. And if you get a job offer from somewhere and you want to move more quickly than you had planned, that gives you the option to do that. And there was one other thing I was going to mention about that should come back to me at some
So
time.
what I can tell you is, when you take your own portfolio and meet with people like Mr. Bridges, you can go through this for yourself, and they will tell